What?
Nothing. Morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm grumpy. How are you?
Not grumpy.
That's good. You're a happy-go-lucky Irishman.
I think I am.
Good for you. I'm a gloomed and doomed half Italian.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gloomy or I'm not doomy. I think we're gonna have some results today, and I feel okay about that. I don't know how that's all gonna play out, but
So why are you gloomy?
oh, I just can't believe it's as close as it is. Wow, that's hard to take in. So, happy Challenge Friday. It's a beautiful, beautiful day here. We've had a great week of weather, so that's been a nice perk.
Yeah, it has. For November in North Dakota.
All true. I can't, I just want to be sure that we thank Lana Whiting again for
Yes,
being our guest
thank you,
yesterday.
thank you,
That was
thank
a
you.
great
It
conversation.
was fantastic.
And Lana actually touched on something that I'm really anxious to talk with my friend who I have been to Al-Anon with a little bit about, because what hasn't resonated for me in Al-Anon, and if you've never been to Al-Anon or AA, you don't maybe know this. I certainly didn't. Al-Anon runs exactly like AA. So you start with the 12 steps and you go through all of that and you admit that you're powerless, and that just does not work for me at all. It doesn't resonate with me at all. And I couldn't articulate why until Lana talked about what she came across in these other alternative methods. So I'm going to look into them just because I do think there is trauma around being the spouse of an addict in any state, and I think there are things to work through. And I'm not anti-Al-Anon. It just, boy, it's not going to work for me. I joke and say that I operate really well under shame, and I do a little bit, but I don't operate really well under feeling like I don't have control of how the situation is going. And that's a little bit how Al-Anon feels to me, despite the fact that the people who are there are fabulous. So, I don't know. I'm anxious to talk to my friend who has been going to Al-Anon for 3 years, I think, and just get her take on it. Okay, so we're going to finish up this week. Do you have anything you want to add to that? Sorry.
No, I'm good actually. I think, well, I'll touch on it after you've started this, because I think there's actually a link in there that will make more sense than just to me.
Okay.
To me, I think.
So we're going to finish up the week with another little section from Linchpin by Seth Godin that we talked about Monday and Tuesday, I think. Maybe not. Monday? Does Monday feel like it was 15 years ago to you? Wow, what a weird week it's been. So this is Anxiety is Practicing Failure in Advance. Anxiety is needless and imaginary. It's fear about fear. Fear that means nothing. The difference between fear and anxiety. Anxiety is diffuse and focuses on possibilities in an unknown future, not a real or present threat. The resistance is 100% about anxiety, because humans have developed other emotions and warnings to help us avoid actual threats. Anxiety, on the other hand, is an internal construct with no relation to the outside world. Needless anxiety is redundant, because anxiety is always needless. Anxiety doesn't protect you from danger, but from doing great things. It keeps you awake at night and foretells a future that's not going to happen. On the other hand, fear is about staying alive, avoiding snakes, feeding your family, and getting the right to play again tomorrow. Fear should be paid careful attention. There's not a lot of genuine fear here in our world, so when it appears, it's worth noting. Anxiety, on the other hand, is dangerous paralysis. Anxiety is the exaggeration of the worst possible what if, accompanied by self-talk that leads to the relentless minimization of the actual odds of success. Anxiety makes it impossible to do art because it feeds the resistance, giving the lizard brain insane power over us. it's impossible to be a linchpin if you agree to feed your anxiety. So I was reading this morning, and it struck me as particularly important to this week's conversation, because you have referenced a lot about sort of the anxiety you felt as a young person about how you fit in or felt like you didn't. And Lana referenced it yesterday too. She says she was an enthusiastic young drinker because she thought it made her prettier and smarter and wittier, and that boys liked her better, which of course is what starts drinking for all kinds of people. So when I read this morning, I thought, oh, this is a great wrap to the week. Yeah. So what would you like to say about it?
It is true. I often told you that you're the first person I ever met sober. I mean, I used to...
Yeah, you were not an addict when I met you.
I couldn't just go up and talk to someone. I didn't have to be like full down drunk, but I had to have a couple of drinks in me. But then at that time in my life, I knew when to stop. It's weird. So when that flip happened, I don't know, but yeah, I did feel... It was weird. I did feel, I suppose, empowered would probably be a good way to describe it. It gave me a bit of courage.
Well, don't they call it liquid courage?
Yeah, and it made me feel better about myself. But I knew when to switch it off. And that's what... It's a weird thing that when you can say, oh, I can do that. And then when you meet someone and then you survive the second day and you think, yep, this could work for a bit. Then you don't need to feel like you need a drink before you say anything. But it was just that first initial thing. But I also always, at that point in my life, knew when to not use that.
Or when to, how much to use to give you what you needed without making you
I knew that all the way through college, in grad school and everything. I knew when to not use it.
I love this idea because if you followed any of the writing I did on my retreat or listened to our daily doses then, you know that I have like a PhD in overactive imagination. And it's almost never positive. It's almost always like 0 to 100, worst case scenario. And so I think I produce a lot of anxiety in my life that is founded in nothing, absolutely nothing. And I know exactly where I get it. I'm sorry to make fun of you, Mother, but the other night, last Friday, when Maz and I paid off the house, we drove to Vergas, Minnesota, about 50 miles from here, to go out for dinner at Blackboard. And my mom texted me somewhere during dinner and said, I'm sorry to ask you this, but you have to let me know when you get home. And I knew exactly what she was going to say to me. She envisioned like a moose walking out into the middle of the road and Maz's little Ford Fiesta slamming into said moose, you know, the flipping the car, the laying upside down in a ditch. I mean, she also can go 0 to 100, worst case scenario, extremely fast. And as can your mother, just as a side note.
Really? I never noticed that about my mother. Well, here's the thing about scale. If you think about the size of a Ford Fiesta, and I don't know if anyone's ever seen a moose, if a Ford Fiesta hit a moose, it would just disintegrate.
Yeah, we would.
It wouldn't flip over. It would just collapse.
It's not that it's irrational, because there are. Can we call them mooses? I know we can't, but there are moose.
Moose.
Yes, in the woods of Minnesota, I guess. And we were driving and it was evening and, you know, all those things. It's not that it's impossible. It's not like she said, oh my gosh, I was sure a meteorite was going to hit you. But it's unnecessary anxiety. All the anxiety that I produced on my writing retreat was unnecessary. And you know what it did? It stopped me from fulfilling my biggest, best mission there, until I said to it, no, you're not the boss. Get the hell in the back seat. I guess I can't get rid of you. It's pretty ingrained in me, but you don't get to drive. That's one of my favorite sections from Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic. I think we've talked about this, but that fear lives with her always, fear and anxiety. And so she says to fear every time she's about to start a new project, creativity and I are going on a car trip and we know you're coming, so you can get in the back seat, but you can't drive, you can't talk, you don't even get to control the radio. So I really like this idea of, can you manage and differentiate fear from anxiety? There are legitimate things to be afraid of. I will tell you, when Quinn was in Chile over Christmas break, his sophomore year of college, almost every single day that he was gone, the phone would ring and it would say, unknown caller. And so I knew it was him. And he never had good news. Never.
Well, that was a hell
He
of
was
a
in
trip.
a car accident. All their luggage, not all of it, but most of their luggage was stolen, including his passport.
His passport was stolen.
He got food poisoning. They lived through a pretty serious earthquake about 100 kilometers away, but they felt it. It was extremely anxiety producing for me. That feels real. I mean, because what was I going to do? He was in Chile. But your average day does not need to have the irrational fear or anxiety that we produce around it. And I'll also say this. How many times have you laid in bed at night because you've got a big project coming up or a big assignment or a big whatever? You lay in bed awake all night long. What does that serve you? Nothing. It just makes you tired going into the big project. That happens to me all the time. Before big new launches of things at the Arts Partnership, I don't sleep.
I still do it. I'm 50 years old, and if we have to get on a plane and be at an airport at 6 in the morning, I stare at the clock going, maybe the alarm clock's going to break tonight, and it won't go off.
Yeah. Yeah. So our challenge for you this weekend is to list, what are you afraid of? And it can be small to large, real to perceived. List it all and then separate it out. What are you anxious about? And what can and should you actually be fearful about? You know, there are things to be afraid of. If you were at work this week and someone in your office tested positive for COVID, you can be afraid of that. I think that's fair. I don't think it needs to ruin your life unless you catch it and it's a bad case of it. But you can be afraid of that. I don't think that's irrational. But if you don't know anyone with COVID and you're just lying awake every night thinking, I hope I don't get COVID, that's kind of irrational.
Also, don't put a one-word answer down, said the academic. You can't put fear of failure, for example. You got to write fear of failing at what? Mm-hmm. You can't have a fear of failure of
everything.
Of everything.
Because then that's just anxiety.
Yeah.
And you need to let go of anxiety because it's not serving you.
And you can't be afraid of failing something you haven't tried either.
Really?
No. Because that's fear of trying to do something. It's different.
Oh, okay. I'll take that. So I will give you the first thing on my list. I am speaking at the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce's Women Connect the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I have a little bit of anxiety about it. I'm not at all afraid of it because public speaking is what I do. It's also what I've told the universe over and over and over again I want to do more of. So I'm not afraid of it. I have a little bit of anxiety around it. What if I'm not good enough? What if I didn't prepare enough slides? What if I'm very good in front of a live audience because I'm pretty funny. There is no live audience. It's just some camera guy and me. So who will be there to laugh when I make my funny, sarcastic, self-deprecating humor? No one. What if that doesn't work very well for me? I could create a whole bunch of scenarios. What if all I really focus on, like I did when I gave my TED Talk 5 years ago, is my overwhelming fear that my knees look wrinkly? I can come up with some weird stuff to be anxious about. And you just can't because you're not a woman.
My knees aren't wrinkly.
Mine are. My knees are getting wrinkly.
No, they're not.
A little bit. Anyway, I can create some weird stuff to disrupt the art of making what I know is going to be a moving and difference-making speech. I'm going to just list it and set it aside because I don't have anything to be anxious about. This is what I do. I'm good at it and I want to do it. So then I can just move on. And now I just continue to create it. And I don't have the weight of what if. What if? What if it's a bust? That's the other thing. What if it's a bust?
Yeah, well, maybe make
Okay.
a list of the worst that you think's going to happen too.
Yeah, I won't die on the spot if the talk's a bust. I'll be embarrassed. I'll be disappointed in myself. I won't get invited back to speak. Wow. In the grand scheme of failures, those are not terrible outcomes. So
That's true.
So I think just go through it. What time is it?
1:45.
Oh, we should probably wrap up.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Enjoy the weather. It's going to be really crappy starting Monday. So get outside
Yes,
this weekend and enjoy the weather.
Don't even do any gardening. Sit in your garden. It'd be warm enough.
Yeah, well, hopefully your gardening's all done. But make your list and then separate them out. Keep what you need to be afraid of and ditch what you're just creating anxiety over because it's just not serving you. Happy weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
See you Monday.
Bye.
Bye.